What's going on, everyone? So I'm back working on the Impala. The goal for this video is to do some suspension work on the car, and what that's going to include is lowering springs, shocks, the rear extended control arm kit or whatever you call that, and the rear sway bar. I'm still missing the ball joints and bushings and tie rods for the front, but they're on their way. So the rear is pretty much going to get the sway bar, control arms, springs and shocks, and that'll pretty much complete the rear of the car. The front of the car is going to get the springs, shocks, and I'll change tie rods, bushings and ball joints, and pretty much just freshen it up. This right here is pretty much I would say just temporary, because in the future I'll plan on throwing a QA1 coilover kit in the front and in the back, which I think at the back I'll just do the coilovers because I already have the control arms and the sway bar. So that's in the future, but for now it's just going to be freshen it up and just go over everything. And the brakes, I'm not really going to do anything with the brakes. I'm gonna just change out pads, grease everything down, change brake lines or whatever needs to be changed. It's just temporary because in the future I plan on throwing a big brake kit on there. That's coming in the future, but for now just freshen everything up and have it where I can drive it. So since I have everything for the rear right now, because I'm still waiting for the ball joints and all the other good stuff, I'm gonna work on the back. So I'm gonna jack it up, wheels off, and go from there. So I got the car up on jack stands. Next thing I need to do is remove the shocks and springs, and to do that I need to put a little bit of pressure on the rear end, lift it up a little bit, then I can unbolt the shocks and then lower it back down, and then the spring should come out. So I have the shocks and springs removed. Next thing I'm gonna do is remove the lower control arms with the sway bar. Hopefully I can remove it all together. That way I can kind of just slip that one in there and bolt it all together. Then once I got the lower installed, I'll remove the top control arms and put the new ones on there. So I have the control arms installed, the upper and lower, and the sway bar. I don't know, on video it probably looked like it went in pretty easy, but out of everything I've done to this car, the swap, everything I've built so far, that right there has been the most difficult thing to put on the car. I don't know why, but it was pretty difficult. But if you plan on doing it, don't get discouraged. Just take your time and you'll get it in there. So next thing to do is put the shocks and springs. And that's all the old stuff I took out. I didn't really say, but for springs, I'm going with Ibach lowering springs. I think they're like an inch lower than the Impala springs. And then for shocks, it's just some Beltec lowering shocks. So first thing I need to do is get the shocks in there, and then I can put the springs. So everything with the rear suspension is pretty much done. I looked over everything looks good. Now I'm gonna get the rear tires on there and put it on the ground and move on to the front. So I have the tire on back here, and those control arms did center the wheel back here, so that looks pretty good. Hopefully when the suspension settles, it'll drop a little bit more, because right now it looks like the stock springs on there, so I'll see. Next thing with the front is pretty much the same thing. Jack it up, put it on jack stands, and start removing everything and replacing it with new parts. So I have the control arms off. I went ahead and took everything apart. The ball joints and bushings. To take these ball joints off, you got to grind the little rivets off, and then you can pull them off. I also took off the steering link because I'm gonna rebuild all that too. I'm not gonna change the lower bushings on the lower control arms because they're still pretty good, so I'm gonna leave that alone. So I'm gonna clean everything up, paint it, and put everything back together. So I got the control arms painted. Now I can start putting them back together. For the upper ball joint, pretty much use these screws to put it together. And then these rear bushings, you got to press them onto that shaft. And then for the lower ball joint, pretty much the same thing. You got to press it on. And then once you get everything done, they should look something like this. Another option, if you don't want to go through all this work of pressing new ball joints in, you can buy these control arms brand new. They are a little bit more expensive, but it is easier. Pretty much just take one off, put the new one on there, and you're done. So yeah, keep that in mind. You can buy these control arms brand new. So let me finish these up, that way I can get them back on the car. So I got the front suspension done. Everything is put back together. I got the lowering springs in there. I looked over the brakes. Everything came out pretty good. The last thing I need to do is install this steering linkage. Here's the old one right here. It was in pretty bad shape, and I got all the new stuff there. What I'm gonna do is try to match the new stuff with the old. That way my alignment won't be that bad, but I still got to get the car aligned, so it'll just be enough to get me there. So let me get everything on there, that way I can wrap up this front suspension. So this is what the car looks like with the suspension settled. It's not too low and it's not too high. It's just right. I like it. It works. So for now, this project is done, but it's not done because I still have some other stuff that I want to do to it. Like I said, I want to upgrade the brakes. I'm going to change out the gauges. But the number one thing is this car needs to get painted. It's going to go back black, keep it back original. I don't like the two-tone, but for now, it works. Everything is good, and I'm able to drive it as is. And I got some other little stuff that I want to do to it. I never got around to taking off the tint. It's still there. I took y'all suggestions, and I'll be doing it, but that's to come in the future. But for now, it's fine. I got some other projects that I'll be working on. Some people have been asking about where the box caprice at. Well, the videos are coming. I'll be doing some engine upgrades on that, so stay tuned for that. And I got some other projects that I'll throw in between all that. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.